So before I jump into this video, I want to remind you to subscribe to this channel. Lots of cool stuff coming up, so stay tuned. What's up? I'm travel photographer Brendan Vanson of brendansadventures.com, and today I've got my 8 travel photography hacks. So as a travel photographer, you have a couple things you really have to deal with when you're out on the road. First thing is the cost. Travel photography gear can get really expensive. And the second thing is space. You do not have all the room in the world when you're out traveling the world 365 days like I do. You don't have the option of just going into a room full of gear and grabbing whatever you need. So you need items that are versatile, that are small, and that you can pack around with you everywhere. Thus, enter the travel photography hacks that I'm going to show you. I've got 8 of them, so let's get into them. So my first travel photography hack is actually just more of a photography hack, and it's one of the oldest ones in the book. This is a piece of really high density welding glass, and this chunk of glass, which is about 150 millimeters by 100 millimeters, is basically like a 16-stop ND filter. Now, if you look on the market for ND filters that are 10-stop even, like the Stingray filters, which are obviously high-end, those are running about $400 just for a filter. Now, obviously, with a piece of welding glass, you're not going to get the best color capture. You're also going to have to deal with things like white balance issues, but it does essentially the same thing. It's like a giant piece of sunglass for your lens. So if you're the type of person that you're maybe just a hobbyist photographer and you want to start fooling around with some longer exposures, get a piece of welding glass. This was $5. Also, if you're a photographer out on the road and say you lose or break your piece of your filter, your neutral density filter, just head to a welding shop and pick one of these up. It'll get you through in a pinch. My travel photography hack number 2 relates to macro photography. Now, obviously you can go out and pick up a macro lens. I think a good 100mm macro lens with image stabilization runs about $1,000. Without image stabilization, about $600 or so. Or you can pick up these Zycos macro extension tubes that run about $50, $70 and essentially do the same sort of thing. Now, since there's no glass in these, it's just giant hole, you're not going to lose any image quality. Essentially what they're doing is they're pulling the sensor away from the lens and the lens away from the sensor, allowing you to get a shorter or closer minimum focusing distance, allowing you obviously to get closer to your subject in more of a macro look. Now, you lose a little bit of light using these, so you're going to have to shoot like a higher ISO probably, and you're going to get a really narrow depth of field, especially if you're shooting it on something like this, the 70 to 200 millimeter. You're going to have a really narrow depth of field, but you get some close up action and really cheap. So that's a great travel photography hack, to just pack one of these cheap little sets of tubes around in your bag that's light rather than a big macro lens. So hack number 3 is this Canon 2-time extender. And like all the hacks, it's obviously a little bit better to go out and just get a 400mm lens rather than plop one of these on. But again, I don't have the money. I'm a travel photographer. I'm broke. I can't afford it. That's why it's a hack. Also, this takes up much less room than a 400mm. Now, I shot this on my 60D for a while with my 200mm f2.8 prime, and I didn't get the greatest results. It wasn't super sharp, and because you lose 2 stops of light when you throw this on, so basically the 70 to 200 becomes an f5.6 rather than the 2.8, it means it's slower. Now, I was meaning to go outside and do some shooting, but it snowed today, and I was going to test this thing out on the 6D to see if the results are better, and I'm sure they will be. But in a later video, I will show you the results using this in the 6D. Now, when you plug this on to something like the 70 to 200, you bump this up to a 140 to 400 millimeter lens. So if you're the type of person that's more of a, an enthusiast, or you're not really like doing pro shots, and you have just a trip to go on a safari in Africa, and you want really cool images, but you're not that worried about getting really tack sharp images, a 2-time extender is a great option. A 400mm lens, even a prime, is like at least $2,000 for an f5.6. If you're looking at the 100 to 400 millimeter, which is 4.5 to 5.6, again, it's about $2,000. This thing is about 400 bucks. You can pick them up used for 300 bucks too. So to save some money, it's a good option. Travel photography hack number 4 comes down to tripods. Now, when you're shooting a travel tripod, you obviously want one that is completely compact. Now, this is my Brian Blue by three-legged thing, and it compacts way smaller than this, and it just saves you a lot of space. You also probably want to go carbon fiber because it's lighter, but the biggest thing to look for, if you're somebody like me that shoots a lot this way, find a tripod that also doubles up as a monopod. So this three-legged thing, you just peel off one of the legs like so, and obviously you're going to put your head on top of this. You're going to take it off your tripod, but then you've essentially got yourself a near full-sized monopod. Now, I used to carry around a monopod because I love monopods for shooting things like wildlife and portraits out on the street if I'm doing more of a formal portraits. Or they're also great in places like museums where they don't let you take tripods because they get in the way. You can use this to stabilize. So this is an awesome option for somebody that doesn't want to have to pack both a monopod and a tripod. You get it all in one. Versatility is always the key with travel photography, and this is an awesome option. So unlike all the other travel photography hacks I've given you that kind of are a bit of a compromise. I mean, when you're using the welding glass, you lose a bit of the quality. When you use a 2-time extender, you lose a little bit of quality. The macro tubes don't get you as close as a macro lens would. The monopod's obviously not top-notch when it's attached to your tripod as a normal leg. This number 5 in my travel photography hacks actually will up your game. This is a TriggerTrap, and it's a mobile dongle. So what you do is you download the TriggerTrap app for your iPhone or Android, and it basically works as an intervalometer. You plug this into the the intervalometer jack of your camera, and you can control all the settings from your phone. You can remote shoot, you can do time lapse like an intervalometer. It does things like star lapse, it does things like long exposure, HDR photography, it does things like motion detection and noise detection. It really ups your game. Now, a typical intervalometer that only does maybe a quarter of the things the TriggerTrap costs about 100 bucks, maybe 120 bucks. The TriggerTrap you can get on TriggerTrap's website for about 35 bucks. I think it's 23 pounds. So it's an absolutely phenomenal deal, and the best part about it is look at how small that thing packs up. As a travel photographer, you don't want things to waste space. I don't use an intervalometer. It's expensive, it takes up too much space, especially when I can just use something like this. Photography hack number 5 is another one of these old tricks that a lot of photographers use, not just myself, but it comes down to your caps of your body and your lens. So the back cap of your lens and the front cap of your body, they actually twist together like so. And you can hold things in it. So you can put whatever you want inside of it. I like to hold my memory cards in there. I'm gonna have these things around with me anyway, so why not make use of them and not have to buy a memory card holder? You can fit like 4 memory cards inside one of these things. It's an old trick. I'm sure like 50% of travel photographers in the world do that. I'm definitely one of them. It's a great hack. And inside hack number 6, we have hack number 7. Hack number 7 is an EyeFi card. These EyeFi cards are fantastic. They basically turn any DSLR into a mobile-ready hotspot, which means that you'll be able to download the images that you shoot on your camera to your mobile device just by using one of these cards. Now, obviously, a lot of new DSLRs like the Canon 6D have Wi-Fi enabled in them, so you can do that with your phones as well. But this is a really cheap version, so if you have any kind of camera, any kind of DSLR, you can do it. You just plug this thing in, you download the app on your iPhone or Android, you shoot the images, and then if you want them to, they pop up on your iPhone and you can share them off to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want. And the EyeFi cards really aren't that much more expensive than a regular SD card. They're fantastic. That's a great hack. So my final travel photography hack is one you won't hear a lot of people talking about, and that's the crop sensor advantage. You hear about the disadvantages of crop sensors all the time. With a full frame sensor, you obviously get better image quality, better noise handling and things like that. But for travel photography, crop sensors might actually be more versatile and cheaper. Now, this is a 60D. I've shot crop sensors for the first 5 years of my travel photography career, and I have no regrets about it at all. This 60D has done me really, really well. And you can pick up a 60D for about $800, just the body, which is much cheaper than the $1,600, $1,700 you'd need to spend on a 6D. The other advantage comes to the lenses. This is a 10 to 20 millimeter lens by Sigma, which is basically an equivalent of Canon's 16 to 35 millimeter lens. This lens here is $400 or so. The Canon lens is $1,200. And you really get even more versatility when you move into shooting full frame lenses. This is the 70 to 200 f2.8. If you throw this on a crop sensor with that 1.6 crop factor, it essentially turns it into a 120 to 320 millimeter lens, which is fantastic if you're shooting wildlife. A lot of bird photographers and wildlife photographers, in fact, actually shoot crop sensors like the 7D, 7D Mark II for the simple fact that they get more range on their zoom lenses. If you bought a 300 millimeter lens, you're looking at paying a lot more than this, especially if you're going to be shooting a 70 to 200 anyway. So by buying a crop sensor, you're going to save yourself a lot of money and actually have more versatility. And yeah, shooting a crop sensor, there's a lot of advantages as a travel photographer, and people do not talk about those advantages because they always are concerned about getting that full frame sensor. Anyways, that's it for the show today. I want to remind you that we're booking now for my travel photography workshop in Peru, May 2015. I think we've had already 6 bookings, so that means there's only 6 spots left. So hurry and book now because there is limited space. I also want to remind you to head over to my website, brendansadventures.com, and sign up for my newsletter. When you sign up for my newsletter, you get a free copy of my adventure travel magazine, Vagabundo Magazine, which is chock full of great travel photography. Also, subscribe to the channel. There's lots of cool stuff coming up. We're going to do some reviews of the gear that I've been showing you over the past 5 minutes or so. I'm also going to take you on some adventure travel photography as we're going to hit the ski slopes as soon as they open. And judging by the 1.5 feet of snow that fell last night, ski season is coming quick. And then after ski season has started, we're heading down to South America via the United States of America, which should be fun. Lots of cool stuff coming. I'll catch you next time. Peace.